Coming up today on the show, it's Taking Stock Tuesday. Who are these Seattle Seahawks? How good are they really? One of only 5 undefeated teams in the NFL, but they have their detractors, although some are getting on the bandwagon, including one major publication that shot them way up in their power rankings. We'll mention that today. And then I'm going to tell you what I think the glue is, the foundation, the piece that's keeping all this together and allowing them to be competitive week in, week out, to be undefeated, and I believe will continue to allow them to be competitive against good teams as we get into the thicker part of the schedule. And in doing so, I will highlight one player involved in that process that just continues to make plays. And we have some breaking news, some roster machinations today. An old friend, a big nose tackle coming in to help back up and give some depth behind Jonathan Hankins. Coming up next today, this is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Let's get this started as we always do. Hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Best way to support what's going on here. And hit that bell so you're always notified of new episodes if you prefer audio podcasts. The show is available on all platforms. Be sure to subscribe so it's in your library. If you like what you hear, hit a rating or a review for me. I'd really appreciate it. And all the other ways to support the show are down below. Let's get caught up on some breaking news. For a change, this happened right before I started recording. The Seahawks were nice enough to send out a notification. The Seahawks have signed Tyler Hall, cornerback Tyler Hall, to the practice squad and released Marquise Blair. And then they brought back Matt Gotel. Now, this was something that I speculated a month or so ago. Gotel, the Lakewood native, finished the season last year on the active roster, played some important snaps against the Cardinals in that season finale. 340 pounds, really that body type and play style that we didn't have on the roster. And we've been wondering for the last month or so how this was going to shake itself out. Jonathan Hankins, who played outstanding against the Dolphins on Sunday and had to, with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy having to leave the game with injuries. Not a guy that you want to lean on too heavily as far as snap counts go. You want to rotate him. Ideally he's more of a, 2-down player. And so that not a true nose tackle there behind him, but Gotel certainly fits that bill and was having an outstanding training camp until he hurt his ankle, injury settlement. He was released. I speculated, in fact, I think I just retweeted it, that it would make sense that once he gets healthy, he could very well come back. And that's indeed what happened. And I actually, depending, of course, on Leonard Williams' status, Byron Murphy's status, no updates yesterday from Mike McDonald in his Monday press conference. It does seem like we may be looking at more of an extended absence with Murphy and his hamstring than Williams, because Williams, with those ribs, did re-enter the game at one point and try to give it a go. And it just feels like ribs can be, we've seen many examples of it, it can be managed a little bit more with painkillers and, flak jackets and things like that. Whereas, if your hamstring is banged up, you don't want to risk tearing that. You don't want to risk getting Murphy back out there until he's 100% again. So we may be without the rookie first-round draft pick for a little bit. But I think the Gotel move, it certainly checks a box and fits a need, especially given that we still haven't seen Cameron Young. Now, I reached out to Brady Henderson of ESPN today. Brady got right back to me. And I asked for an update on Young because he's on the PUP list, so he'd be eligible to come off next week after the Detroit game. And Brady says it's going to be longer than that. It may be another month or so, which is interesting. He must have, and I haven't gotten any more specific clarity on this, he must have aggravated or re-injured himself. Because if you remember at the very beginning of training camp, one of the first, maybe the first press conference after the first practice that McDonald gave, he gave some injury updates and the status. He lumped them together. Jaron Reed wasn't practicing and neither was Cameron Young. He said, Jay Reed's a week out. Cam's about 2 weeks out. And then we never saw him in camp. So last year's 4th-round draft pick, not available still. And I think he's a guy that I'm still really anxious to see him in this scheme and see some of those qualities we saw in him as a rookie. So Gotel is in. Wouldn't surprise me if he's elevated from the practice squad and made available on Sunday, especially if Williams isn't able to go against the Lions. But what I thought I would do here today is just, like I said in the intro, take stock. How good do you think this team is? Week 1, week 2, we say ad nauseum. It's hard to tell. We really don't know these teams. Week 1 tells the most lies. We find more things out week 2. We find even more things out week 3. It's obviously, I'd be Captain Obvious if I said we find out more about these teams with each week that goes by. And certainly that's the case with the Seahawks. And, there's differing opinions out there about how legitimate they are as an undefeated team. Rival fans will tell you that they're a complete fraud. The analysts will tell you, wait and see. For the most part, that seems to be the consensus. Let's wait and see. And we're going to find out. Because up next, a big trip to Detroit, Monday Night Football. It's under the lights, national TV, the whole thing. 2 would-be NFC contenders going head-to-head. If the Seahawks are able to go out and play well on Monday, beat the Lions as they have the last 2 years, it's a place they've played well, obviously, then you might see the narrative start to shift. It is shifting a little bit. We'll talk about the power rankings in a minute. But there's a lot of good to talk about. And the big debate the last 48 hours, and I've talked to some fans on Twitter, has been how seriously can we take them? Because by one metric, I have seen that the Seahawks schedule through the first 3 weeks, based on this year's performance of those teams, is the easiest schedule in the NFL. They've had the easiest road. They're also one of several teams in the NFL that has had the most change. And so not a bad time for a soft landing, right? And facing some undangerous quarterbacks, if I may coin a phrase. But you can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. You can only play the teams that are on your schedule. And they've won them all in varying degrees of convincingness. Am I just making up words today? I don't know. There's a lot of good things, right? You look overall at how the team's performing. On offense, they are 8th in the league in yards per game. They are 9th in the league in points per game. On defense, they are 2nd in the league in yards allowed. They are 4th in the league in points allowed. So if you're going to win your games against teams that are considered inferior to you, then try to win them as convincingly as you can, right? And then Mike McDonald stands up at the podium yesterday in his press conference and says, a lot of good things are happening. There's a lot of things that we see on tape that are good, but we have so far to go. We have so much work to be done. There's so many things that can get a lot better. That's a little different messaging than we're used to hearing over the last few years, isn't it? I think we've heard, you can compare and contrast that to times over the last few years when things seem to be going poorly, and the head coach and his staff would say, well, we think we're okay. See the difference there? Big, big difference. Now, talk is one thing, let's see him put it into practice heading into Detroit. Because who they are is starting to become clearer. Like, we're seeing an identity on defense. That's what I'm going to primarily talk about today. But even on offense, we're seeing an identity start to form. As much as the interior offensive line, for good reason, has gotten a lot of attention for their struggles at the guard position, especially, Geno Smith's playing at a high level, despite that, a really high level. 3rd in the NFL in passing yards per game, despite an offensive line that's ranked at the bottom of the league in just about every metric. An inconsistent running game. But a willingness to stick with it despite, especially the New England game, despite, really having some trouble running the football. Great way to come back against the Dolphins with Zach Charbonnet, who didn't look good in week 2 and effectively be able to run the ball to put the game away late. And then the other piece of the identity on offense we're starting to see form is they're a team that has a lot of weapons. We knew that, but they're using them all. They're spreading the ball around. Got Noah Fant and the tight ends involved this last week. A.J. Barner had a couple of catches. I thought it might have been one of the better games we've seen from Noah Fant. 6 targets, 6 catches, didn't have any drops, a couple of first downs. They're becoming a team that's hard to prepare for as a defense. And I believe when at some point that offensive line starts to get better, and we've seen signs of it. Stone Forsythe was the Seahawks' highest rated offensive lineman this week. Did an outstanding job. Basically rendered Jalen Phillips irrelevant. Didn't hear Phillips' name much on Sunday. Their best pass rusher. Forsythe was good. And remember, the book on him coming out of Florida was outstanding pass protector. In fact, a couple of scouting reports termed his ability there as starter level quality as a rookie in pass protection, needed some work in the run game. And so that's the identity we're starting to see on offense. You continue to improve that. You fix that guard position somehow, some way, either by those two guys getting better or replaced at some level. And are any of us not confident that Geno Smith is going to take his game to even another level? Now, what I think is the most consistent thread running throughout their entire performance this year is the defense. That's not a shocking statement. But in particular, it's the fact that the defense is coming together in the image of their head coach, the vision that Mike Macdonald has for how to play defense, something we saw executed in this manner at Michigan. We saw it at Baltimore. Now we're seeing it in Seattle. And that is not ever being overly reliant on 2 or 3 key players to have to step up and be great every week for you to have a chance. Everyone is contributing. Everyone. There doesn't seem to be a weak link on defense. Even against the Dolphins, Tyrese Knight, 4th round rookie, having to play for Jerome Baker, who's a much more experienced veteran, and not seeing a drop off in linebacker play, right? We're seeing Terrell Dodson develop in front of our eyes. Even Drake Thomas was out there making plays, had a tackle for loss, had 19 snaps, I think. And then, the secondary, what can we say about them? Reek Woolen, by much of the analytical statistical data that's out there so far through 3 games, might be performing at the highest level of any corner in the league right now. Devin Witherspoon, we know about his ability. We're seeing the safeties making plays. Rayshawn Jenkins has looked like one of the better free agent signings of this offseason. And certainly the Jacksonville Jaguars look like they missed him yesterday. And we're seeing the team trusting. We're seeing the coaching staff trusting that roster. Kobe Bryant got a bunch of snaps at safety, along with Kayvon Wallace. We've seen Julian Love play at a high level, the defensive line and the pressure that they're getting, and it's coming from everywhere. And the best example, I think, of that is what we're seeing from their edge players. And this is without Uchenna Nwosu, who may be ready to play against the Lions. He's going to give it a go. And McDonald said he would try to practice this week. But let's look at this, and you start to get a picture of how much of a team effort it is. When you look at ESPN's pass rush win rates, which were updated today, only one player is listed in the top 20, and that's Boye Mafe. He's 5th with a 30% win rate. Incidentally enough, just behind Darrell Taylor, who's 4th with the Bears. He's done really well in kind of that specialized role there in Chicago. Behind Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, that's pretty exclusive company, right? So he's the only guy out of that group that's ranked in the top 20. And yet, as a team, they're 3rd behind the Bears and the Broncos. So they're the 3rd best team overall in pass rush win rate with only one player in the top 20. They're getting it from everyone. Draymond Jones is making plays. For those of you who said he was washed and they should cut him or trade him and get rid of that cap hit, like, he's making plays. He's part of this. We've seen Mafe continue to play well and kind of take that next step. We saw the big jump from him last year. And now we're seeing a big jump out of Derick Hall. He's not in the top 20 in pass rush win rate, but he's not far behind. And in run stop win rate, he is up there right in front of Boye Mafe. They are 5th and 6th in the league. Hall with a 38% stop rate, Mafe with a 37% stop rate. So he's doing both. You can see why the team was comfortable moving on from Darrell Taylor, because essentially, and this is assuming Nwosu's healthy, that's a 3-man rotation where Hall supplants Taylor as the third guy because he can do both. And you see him performing against the run, and you see him performing against the pass. And I prepared some cut-ups here of some of the examples that I really loved from Hall on Sunday against, let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Against the Dolphins. So this is that first drive, Dolphins deep into Seahawks territory, the goal line stand at the end of the first quarter. Jonathan Hankins was huge in this sequence. But from the Seattle 4, watch Derick Hall applying pressure. And this is the kind of stuff we saw a lot on his college tape, right? He's coming off the right-hand side. Skylar Thompson's looking left. He wants Jalen Waddle on a corner route there, and Harold just walks Terran Armstead, one of the better, more consistent, high-performing left tackles in the league for years, just right back into Thompson. Blows that play up, forces him to scramble to the right side and eventually throw the ball away. Like, again, this is what we saw a lot on his tape in college. But he's added a new element to his game, and that'll pop up later in this sequence. Just watch him just right here. Armstead loses leverage. And Hall wins this. If Thompson holds on to that ball another second or doesn't take off running, he probably gets a sack out of this, but he blows up the play. And then you get the backside pursuit, and those guys are there to support. Another example. This play, ball is near midfield. Liam Eichenberg's going to pull. Watch him hold his edge here. He manages Eichenberg with one arm, basically, which is something we saw a lot at Auburn. I know I've referenced this before. Sorry to be repetitive if you watch the show on a regular basis, but that Auburn tape is what really turned me on to Derick Hall, because there's reps on there. And Auburn that year, both their tackles now play in the NFL. I think 2 years ago, was it Tyler Steen and J.C. Latham? I think that might have been the combo. But he has examples on that tape from each side with one arm bull rushes, beating both of those tackles and just pushing them back and ruining the pocket with his power. So he kind of uses that technique for a moment here just to control Eichenberg, kind of keep him where he wants him. And then he ends up helping to affect the running play. He doesn't get credit for a tackle here, but he holds the edge. He sets the edge. Now, I mentioned that we've seen something different from him this year. This is something I didn't see any reps like this on tape from him at Auburn or at the Senior Bowl. The twitch, the speed, the get off, and the bend. He's facing a tight end here, but he absolutely dominates him and just doesn't give Skylar Thompson a chance, right? So he does the single arm, kind of the swim move to get past, and then bend, and then he accelerates and finishes. That's outstanding. That's scary. When you think about Hall's power and what the basis, the foundation of his game was up until this point, now he adds that element to it. That's just outstanding. That's fun. Now, this is talk about fun. This is the sack at the end of the half, basically a Hail Mary situation. I mean, the play takes forever, but what I think this play says, what I like about this play is that's just relentless effort, right? He's just never going to quit. We've seen, if you watched all the games this weekend, if you look around the league, you see effort issues. Not going to name names, but some teams that are falling short of expectations, some of them closer to home than others. You see effort issues. You're never going to see that out of Derick Hall. And if you don't know his story, his backstory, go look it up. Absolutely tremendous. You can understand why he never takes a rep off. And then I wanted to include this one as the last one, just to kind of show you, again, doing the dirty work, right? I don't mean to pile on Darrell Taylor, but he played the game like a guy that was only interested in stats. Don't see that from Derick Hall. It's just another example of really good fundamental mechanical play. He's coming, right? He's rushing the quarterback here, but he immediately reads the screen, gets out in the flat, makes tackle for a short gain. That's really, really good. Let's take a look at that one again. That's just outstanding. This is a coach's dream. This is teaching tape, right? I'm coming. If Thompson drops back here, I'm coming. And Armstead's out of the game now, so maybe I just beat this tackle if he's sliding back into his pass set. But nope. I can immediately read that it's a screen, something that hasn't been a real strength of Seahawks defenses the last couple of years, and makes the play. Just a really, really impressive and encouraging outing from Derick Hall, and just, couldn't happen to a better guy. So love to see it. If you've ever been guilty of fumbling your personal grooming needs, gentlemen, Manscaped is here to help. Check out their Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. This is their all-star lineup of products, highlighted by the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer. This is the franchise player of your grooming roster. With precise trimming capabilities, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is built for performance. It's reliable, efficient, gets the job done without fumbling. Whether it's for date night, a weekend tailgate, or just everyday grooming, this is the tool you want on your squad. And right now, the 5.0 Ultra Performance Package can be had for 20% off with free shipping. All you have to do is use the promo code Seahawks at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Seahawks at manscaped.com. Stay on top of your grooming game and be ready for anything the season throws your way. Now, are they going to be able to do it against Detroit? This high-powered offense, we know about all the weapons, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams emerging now as a deep threat on the outside. Sam Laporta, they've got injuries. We're going to talk about this. Chris Perfett of Pride of Detroit is going to join me tomorrow. We're going to do a proper preview of the game and hopefully get some injury updates. Sam Laporta might not play this week. Sounds like day-to-day, but something that will probably prevent him from playing this week. But they haven't ruled him out yet. But also on that offensive line, lines are known for having one of the best offensive lines in the league. I mean, Penei Sewell is continuing to do Penei Sewell things. He's 6th in the league in pass rush win rate, I think, right now. He's a superstar at left tackle. Frank Ragnow, however, one of the best centers in the NFL, he's hurt. Partially torn pec muscle. Again, they're not ruling him out. And Dan Campbell said yesterday, like, he wants to play. He's tough. He's going to try and give it a go. But he also said, we're going to do what's best for him long-term and best for the team. Doesn't sound like he's going to play. So Michael Neese, an undrafted free agent a couple years, only appeared in 3 career games, would play in his place. But all along that line, they've got studs. Taylor Decker at right tackle. They brought in Kevin Zeitler this year. The Seahawks pursued him, but he decided to go to Detroit. Graham Glasgow, just a very, very solid group of offensive linemen. So will this defense be able to do what they've been doing against that group? That's obviously going to be the biggest test. As a team, the Lions are 6th in the league overall in pass block win rate. They're only 21st in run blocking, which is surprising to me. And you have to be encouraged with how the Seahawks bounced back after that debacle against the run in New England and shut down the Dolphins. I mean, they're here. I got these numbers here. Yeah. Against a good running team. Dolphins are a good running team. They're 7th in the league in run block win rate. Even when you incorporate the numbers from this game, their running backs only managed 42 yards on Sunday, and 23 of those yards came on 2 plays. Jeff Wilson and Devon Achane both had a longish run. So if you take those 2 plays out of it, they averaged 1.5 yards per carry with their running backs on Sunday. And again, much of that was without Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. That's everyone doing their job. That's everyone filling their gaps, knowing their assignment. Granted, they didn't, the volume wasn't as high because the Seahawks were playing with a lead. But it was an outstanding bounce back effort for them coming out of what happened in New England. The concerns about the interior offensive line, not going to spend a lot of time on that today. That's obviously a big concern. And I thought about doing, video cut-ups of Bradford this week, Bradford and Tomlinson, but I already kind of did that last week, and it looks even uglier this week. The biggest question coming out of the Miami game was, hey, Coach McDonald, you told us last week that Christian Haynes was going to get more reps, needed more of an opportunity to compete. All 5 offensive linemen played 100% of the snaps on Sunday. Didn't see any Christian Haynes. And Anthony Bradford struggled. He is second to last in the NFL among guards, according to PFF in their player rankings. Laken Tomlinson's bottom 25% himself. Where's Christian Haynes? Is he just, and McDonald said again yesterday, look, we're going to look at it again this week. We're going to let him compete. But a lot of what happens on game day is predicated by what happens in practice. Is Christian Haynes that much worse of a practice player right now than Anthony Bradford? I mean, what's going on there? All we have to go on is preseason tape, but we saw plenty of reps from him, and he looked really good. He looked advanced for a rookie. He was one of the best guards in the draft. He wasn't expected to be there when the Seahawks picked at 81. I saw one draft analyst shortly thereafter say that he was the best pure right guard in the draft, that the other guys taken ahead of him were hybrid players, centers, guards, played some left guard. I think, again, people are panicking. I've gotten a lot of feedback this week that we need to trade for a guard. First of all, no one's trading a good guard right now. I hear, well, the Browns are going to stink this year. Get Joel Bitonio from them. Okay. It's 3 games in. Do you think the Browns, with all the negative publicity and all the hits they've taken the last couple of years with the Deshaun Watson thing, do you think they're going to give up on a season and trade one of their best players, especially given that their other really good guard, Wyatt Teller, is injured now? No. No one's trading good guards right now. Closer to the deadline? Sure, that may be a possibility. But as I tweeted yesterday, in my opinion, Tomlinson and Bradford have been so bad that I would take, this is ridiculous, and this is an exaggeration, and this is hyperbole, but I'm not so sure that Sataoa Lamea, their 6th-round pick out of Utah, at left guard and Christian Haynes at right guard, if you just went with the young dudes, I'm not so sure it'd be worse. And you'd have the long-term upside of establishing continuity and building your future line. And then, of course, we still have to wait and see what happens with Abe Lucas next week when he's eligible to come off the PUP list as maybe being an upgrade at right tackle. But I'll tell you what, Stone Forsythe played well enough on Sunday that I am not interested at all in rushing Abe Lucas back. When we see him on the field, I want to know that they believe he's 100% or as close to it as he's ever going to get, and then we'll let it fly and see what we have there. See if he's anything close to what we saw, the player that we saw as a rookie who was so good. But elsewhere, getting back to some good news, despite how bad the interior offensive line has been, and the numbers in pass block and run block, they're 31st in both categories on ESPN. Geno Smith continues to play at a very, very high level. 6th best quarterback in PFF's quarterback grades, behind Carr, Purdy, Murray, Allen, and Rodgers. As I mentioned earlier, 3rd in the NFL in passing yards per game, despite the offensive line being 31st in pass block win rate. He's getting the ball off 6th or 7th fastest in the league. So he's made that adjustment. Get the ball out quick, but not to the detriment of the offense. One thing that I noticed being in the stadium on Sunday from kind of a bird's eye view is, even with the struggles of his offensive line, even though they've been inconsistent and have failed to protect him at times, he trusts them. It's remarkable. He's willing, when the play dictates, to hang in there for that extra half second. We saw it on the long touchdown throw to DK. He kind of hesitated for a second and let DK, run that route and beat the safety and get open, and then just let it fly kind of off his back foot. It was a brilliant throw. And after the game, he said he was pissed at his performance. He threw the 2 picks. He has 3 picks and 3 touchdowns through 3 games. I will argue this, and this isn't just me looking through Seahawk colored glasses. Watch the tape. All 3 interceptions were caused by significant pressure, not ghost pressure, not Sam Darnold with the Jets. I'm seeing ghosts pressure, real pressure, getting his arm hit, getting his leg hit, getting pushed into. The one out of the end zone, he should have eaten that for a safety or thrown it at Charbonnet's feet, or just airmailed it out of there quicker before he had to scramble. So that one I put really on him just because it was a bad decision. But the other 2, the one at New England where he's trying to hit the deep ball to DK. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of another rep that wasn't picked but should have been. But the second pick against Miami, and then the first pass of the year for him against the Broncos were directly caused by pressure. Give that guy a little bit more time. He's getting the ball off in like 2.66 seconds. Give him just a few more tenths, and I think he could shred. And now people are starting to notice. The Seahawks are starting to creep up the power rankings, and this seems a bit premature to me. So Pro Football Talk had them criminally low last week. I think it was 22nd or 23rd. They bumped them up to 16th. That seems still a little low to me, but reasonable. ESPN shot him all the way up to number 4 this week. They put him at 4th in their power rankings. They had him at 10th last week. They put him above Detroit, who's at 5. That might be a little aggressive for me, again, given who they've played, but it's just kind of fun. None of that matters, but as fans, we like it, right? It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be 3-0. It's fun to be undefeated. It's fun to have a 2-game lead in the division. And just another side note, I heard someone say yesterday that, we wanted the Rams to lose that game to San Francisco. It hurts us that they won. Don't know what that person was drinking. Can't disagree more, because now we have a 2-game lead over all the teams, as opposed to just being 1 game ahead of the Niners, who I think are going to at some point figure it out. They're not washed. They're not going to fall apart and be a wreck the rest of the season. They will figure it out. Remember all the panic last year when they lost 3 straight and Brock Purdy didn't play well? They thought, aha, we figured them out, found his Achilles heel. The glass slipper is, his time has run out. And then they came back and went on that run and won the division and went to the Super Bowl. I expect them to rally again at some point, despite all their injuries. For all the Seahawks injuries, man, they've had it second easiest in the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals are pretty darn healthy, but they haven't had as many guys as the Rams and 49ers that are going to be out for a significant amount of time. So better to be undefeated than not. Better to be 2 games up than not, despite however many people want to try to poke holes in it and tear them down. Again, we're going to find out a lot more on Monday. And I don't want to give things away. I'll kind of solidify my feelings by the end of the week and, get some injury updates, talk to Chris tomorrow, but I don't know what to think about Monday's game. I really don't. In the past, we got to know Pete Carroll so well, and we got to know the personality of him and his staff so well, and kind of how it impacted the team, that we had a pretty good feeling whether they were playing a lower level of competition or a better team that week, whether or not they were going to be capable of rising up or playing down to their competition and sort of where they were vibes wise. Have no idea. I'm still just a really interested and engaged and committed observer at this point. And whatever happens kind of, and we'll figure it out as we go along. That'll change certainly at some point when we really dial into who this team should be and the expectations are a little more set. But man, this is going to be fun. I may, as soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to be looking at some tickets and things. My lovely partner is trying to convince me to go to the game. And so I may make that happen because she makes a pretty convincing argument. And these opportunities don't come around that often. We'll let Stephen Douglas and company take us out again. Check them out on Spotify, as always. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Again, we'll preview the Detroit game tomorrow with Chris Perfett of Pride of Detroit. third straight year now that he'll be joining me on the show to preview an early season Seahawks at Detroit game. It's just becoming commonplace, is it? Is it going to be another shootout, as it has been the last 2 years? Is it going to be a shootout with the Seahawks coming out on top? Or is it going to go against type and it'll end up being one of those slugfests and it'll be a little uglier? Lions fans are pumped up because they're going with their their black alternate uniforms. They do look pretty badass, I got to say. I would expect the Seahawks to go blue pants, white jerseys. Although it'd be interesting if they chose to go all white. They haven't done that combination very often. But to completely contrast what the Lions are doing with their black jerseys. That'll be interesting. Until then, down below, again, in the description of the show on YouTube, you'll see all the different ways you can support the channel. Thank you so much for those of you who do and have and will. And, again, the best thing you can do is engage. Give me your comments. What'd you think of this episode? How do you feel about this team after 3 games? How do you feel about them heading into the Detroit game? Of course, engage, share it with other people that really enjoy the Seahawks. And I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Thanks to the folks at Manscaped for sponsoring this episode and for the Blue Wire Network. Thanks to Christine for writing credit that she pointed out in my last episode, and just for everything she does. And thank you to all of you for everything you do. Let's get out of here. I got to edit this show and get it posted for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.